Okay, there we go.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Kerrie Niemeier, and I'm the Director of Marketing and Sales for Wells Gray Tours. And I'm thrilled today to have a very special guest joining us all the way from Ecuador, Marcel Perkins, who is our receptive operator for our Machu Picchu trip from Latin Trails. So welcome, Marcel. Thank you.
Hi, Kerrie. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And we're going to talk about our trip to Peru with Wells Gray Tours. It's a beautiful itinerary that covers Peru and Bolivia, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the highlights, the ins and outs, and certain details of the trip. I know there's only 5 more spaces left, so I hope you can sign up as soon as possible. And we look forward to seeing you here in South America and enjoying these wonders of the Inca Empire and all the history that is behind it. So I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to start out with talking about Peru and the itinerary that we've put together. So just, all right, so we're gonna, well, here's a picture of iconic Machu Picchu. This is one of the main destinations in Peru, one of the main attractions in South America. And this is what you will be seeing on this trip, but more than that, there will be many other destinations that will be your highlight as well. And each person is different, but I'm sure that there's something for everyone on this trip. This trip starts in Lima, Peru, and it goes through by the coast to Nazca, and then we go to Cusco, visiting Machu Picchu. We go onwards to Titicaca Lake, and we finish in La Paz, Bolivia, returning via Lima, so you can fly back. Now, Kerrie, this trip actually, you were explaining to me before that it starts actually in Seattle?
Correct. So Marcel is going to take us through the itinerary once you arrive in Lima. But for our clients, we will be picking you up in your home cities, coaching you down to Seattle, overnighting in Seattle before and after the trip. And that way gives us a little bit of time just to relax before we board our plane, and same with on the way home. So yes, thank you for mentioning that, Marcel.
Well, now that we start in Lima, this is day 1. Lima, the airport in Lima is in close to Callao area, and it's 45 minutes to Miraflores, where our hotel is for the first night. Now, Lima, take note, is at 154 meters above sea level, well, basically sea level. And you have a beautiful ocean view from the city, from the Miraflores district, and it's known as the Green Coast. And Lima is known also as the City of Kings. Now, on day 2, this is where our tour starts. We have breakfast at the hotel. And we're going to visit, well, we're going to have the morning at leisure, everybody to get adapted and ready. Then we'll have lunch. And in the afternoon, we'll visit Pachacamac. It's an archaeological site from the Wari culture. Pachacamac was actually an oracle. So they could tell, you know, when, especially try to divine when there would be rain. And that was very important in this area because it was very dry. This is a pre-Inca site. Of course, then the Incas did have influence on it later on. It's a great intro to Peru, and then we'll continue onwards on we'll go back to the hotel and have an evening there, and then we'll leave early the next day on day 3 from Lima to Nazca. Now, this is a long drive. It's almost 7-hour journey along the coast, seeing several desertic areas, but also along the way, we'll have lunch in the countryside in a restaurant in Ica. Ica is famous in Peru because this is where they harvest the grapes for pisco. Pisco, I'm sure you've heard of the famous Peruvian drink, pisco, and derived from that is the pisco sour. Then we'll continue onwards to Nazca, and we'll spend the night there at our hotel and have dinner there. The next day, we'll be going to the local airport and boarding a small airplane to overfly the Nazca lines. These lines that are centuries or even thousands of years old. No real theory is 100% on how they were formed, why they were created, and what they mean. But it does show that, you know, the Nazca culture knew so much about astronomy and about the stars, and that's what's represented here in the desert in these lines. Now, also after the visit to the lines, we also visit the Chalchilla Cemetery. This is a burial ground from the Nazca culture, representing, how they would actually mummify their important people. So the mummification is not only in Egypt, but in South American cultures as well. And we'll go onwards to Paracas on the way back towards Lima. Now, just a little bit about the airplanes. These are flights organized by Herodiana. This is the best airline doing these flights. Every guest will have a window. There's a capacity for 12 guests only on each plane. All the emergency security systems are in place. And the flight is about 45 minutes above the lines. Now, as I mentioned, we would drive back towards Paracas. This is about 3 hours from the Nazca, so halfway back to Lima. Now, the next morning we will be boarding. We'll be staying in Paracas, but we'll be boarding a small boat to go to the Ballesta Islands. Now, these islands have many types of birds like Nazca boobies, blue-footed boobies, and even penguins and sea lions. We don't disembark on the boat, but we navigate along the islands around. So it would be interesting to bring binoculars if you do have them, if you're interested in bird watching and seeing the birds up close. And a good camera, of course, would also help. We'll return, have lunch in the hotel, and then drive back to Lima after this very interesting visit. Next, day 6, we visit the old town of Lima, the historic center, and we'll be able to observe the famous Lima balconies, Balcón Limeño. These are wooden balconies. Since in Lima, there's no rain or hardly any rain year-round, they actually were able to put these beautiful wooden balconies that would hide the person inside. Usually, young girls looking out through the balcony to meet up with their boyfriends back in the day when these were built. We'll also be visiting the cathedral, the main square. We'll be walking along the presidential palace, visiting the Congress building. And then we'll go onwards to the San Francisco Church and the catacombs that are below. So we'll be seeing Old Town Lima from above and from below ground. Then we'll go onwards to the Larco Herrera Museum. The Larco Museum holds many archaeological treasures from all around Peru, not just Inca, but pre-Inca ceramics and other artifacts. And there is current expositions. And we will have lunch in these beautiful grounds of the Larco Herrera Museum. That evening, we will return to our hotel. And next morning, we have an early flight to Cusco. We're heading to the land of the Incas. But we will not be going directly to Cusco after we land. As you see here, I mentioned that we're 2,800 meters above sea level. Well, the city of Cusco is at 3,400. But taking into account that all travelers are coming from lowlands and from sea level almost, we will be arriving into the Sacred Valley. We will be transferring to a hotel in the Sacred Valley and having a free afternoon there at a lower altitude than Cusco at 2,800 meters. So this will be a good relief for that time. Then we will have day 8, the next day, we will take on our excursions. We'll have breakfast at the hotel, and then we'll visit the town of CHINCHERO. There's a local artisan market here with weavings, colorful tapestries, rugs, sweaters. You'll also be able to see alpacas, llamas, and learn a little bit about the Peruvian culture in the Sacred Valley. Other visits also include the visit to Maras and the salt mines and the archaeological site of Moray that we see here. Moray was an archaeological center that was focused mainly on agriculture. You have the different terraces, and as you go down, it goes into an amphitheater that's almost like a circle. The lower terraces being warmer, showing microclimates, and the higher terrace being cooler. Now, the lower warmer terraces, they use them to actually cultivate corn. And at the higher terraces, more cold weather products like produce like potatoes. Have lunch at a traditional restaurant, and then we'll go on. Well, this is the town of CHINCHERO, just to give an idea of the colorful tapestries and the whole feeling of it. Then we'll go on to the salt mines at Maras. Here's where they harvest the pink salt, famous from the Maras salt, great for barbecues. You can buy some as well as a souvenir, but also you will learn the process of harvesting salt by hand. We'll continue in the Sacred Valley. We'll go on with Ollantaytambo. We'll be going to around 2,000 meters above sea level, a little bit lower. This will be comforting for everyone. We'll first start on this day 9. We'll start with an early breakfast, and then we'll go to Pisac. The Pisac ruins are on a mountainside, very interesting Inca fortress as well. But also the town of Pisac has its traditional market with tapestry, souvenirs, handmade crafts and arts from the Sacred Valley. But also famous here is the bread oven. They have a traditional type of bread, and the entire community bakes all their bread in the community oven at the town. So it's nice to try and to enjoy. But we'll also be going to Ollantaytambo. Ollantaytambo is one of my favorite places in the Sacred Valley. It's not just an Inca fortress and an archaeological site, but the town of Ollantaytambo also is interesting. Be sure to take some time to visit it. There's aqueducts that run through the entire village, and people to the day, the descendants of the Incas still use the water that runs through here for their homes. So it's really unique. Then we'll be boarding. After lunch, this day we'll have a Pachamanca lunch, which is a lunch underground, actually, where we all share a common table, and in the Inca style, eating produce from the Sacred Valley, potatoes and different types of meats, but as a community lunch. Then we'll be boarding the Vista Dome train to go onwards to Aguascalientes. This is the town that's below Machu Picchu. This evening, we will spend the night in Aguascalientes. The transfer to the hotels by foot. One note about the Vista Dome, and this is important. When we arrive in the Sacred Valley, you're going to have to pack a handbag or a carry-on luggage, because the train that takes us to Aguascalientes only allows small luggage. You can't take your big luggage on this part of the journey. We will leave it on our bus, and the bus will take you to our hotel in Cusco, and your luggage will be safely waiting there. The ride on the train is about more, give or take, 2 hours. It's called Vista Dome because the top part of the train has windows, and you can see the Andean mountains through them, and the different snow-capped mountains that are along the way. Now, our day in Machu Picchu, this is day 10 of our trip. Once we arrive in Aguascalientes, we'll spend the night there. The next morning, we'll be leaving the hotel early, around 7 a.m., to board the bus, a small bus that takes us up to the Machu Picchu complex. Now, this is a guided visit. I want you to take into account that there is a route, and we have to follow the guide at all times. It's about a 2-hour walk along the ruins, following a marked path. Then finally, after that, we will have a little bit more time, about an hour or more, to be able to take some additional pictures from the lower side of the ruins on this grass area, the cancha. But we will not be able to backtrack or go wandering on our own. Peru is very strict about how Machu Picchu is visited nowadays and how the routing is done. Now, please take into account that there is a lot of steps along the way. This is, I would say it is a level 3 walk. Now, one thing, good thing about Machu Picchu is not at the same altitude as the Sacred Valley or Cusco. It's a little bit lower, 2,400 meters. It's actually considered part of the Amazon basin, a little bit high for it, but still towards the entrance of it. Machu Picchu at a lower altitude level will be a refresher in that sense, but remember that the steps can be steep and you have to be able to walk unassisted. After visiting Machu Picchu for a few hours and having some time for photos, we will return to Aguascalientes for lunch, and then we'll take the Vista Dome train to the Ollantaytambo station, and there we will drive by bus back to Cusco. This ride, again, it's about 2 hours, and we will have a folklore show on board, a very small basic show, and there is a snack on board the train as well. Then, now we will visit Cusco on day 11. After having seen Machu Picchu, we'll be in Cusco. Cusco's at 3,400 meters above sea level. It is a high altitude destination. Now, the good thing is our hotel is right at the main plaza. It's just around the corner. It's a really nice restored colonial hotel. It's a historic property, but also right at the main plaza, allowing our guests to wander around this area as well. So we'll we'll have a walking tour mainly of the downtown of Cusco. We'll go slowly at a nice pace, visiting the cathedral and other sites, archaeological sites as well. But we will go to Inca ruins like Sacsayhuaman, Kenko, Pucapucara, and Machay. One of my favorites here is Sacsayhuaman. Here you find the largest Inca stones you'll find anywhere. If you want to pronounce it properly, you could say sexy woman. That's how it's kind of pronounced, Sacsayhuaman. Then you'll have lunch and the afternoons at leisure for you to go around the different areas of Cusco. I think San Blas would be a good add-on for you guys to walk around. It's the Bohemian district and you have a lot of art there as well. Then some of the archaeological sites that we will be visiting around Cusco, as I mentioned, Tambo Machay. This is a resting area for the Chasquis. These were the Inca messengers that would go through the Inca trail system all around Peru. Pucapucara, it's a fortress where you could oversee different areas and probably a guard post by the Incas. And Sacsayhuaman, what I mentioned about the largest stones actually that you'll find in the Inca Empire, or one of the sites with some of the largest stones that will actually understand a little bit better or be amazed by the stonework that the Incas did. Then on day 12, we'll be visiting the southern part of the Sacred Valley, the South Valley. Now, the Incas, they were an agricultural empire, more than a war empire. You see, on this day, we'll be visiting Tipon and Piquillacta. Tipon is very special, it's not a new archaeological site, but it's newly been revealed to the public and to visitors. And it was an agricultural research center. The Incas based their empire on agricultural research, managing aqueducts, bringing in water for places where there was no water. This is actually how they grew the empire. They were not the main way of expansion was through agriculture. They would actually invite other cultures or nearby tribes to visit Cusco almost on a city tour to convince them to be part of the empire. And then in exchange for them joining and paying a tribute to the Inca, they would teach them how to manage better agriculture, doing the terracing. They were geniuses at that, and actually how to create aqueducts and bring water to more desertic areas and really strive as a community. And this way they would actually convert or add on different tribes to the Incas. Now, if this didn't work, then the last resource would be go to war. Of course, they were warriors, but the main way was through agriculture. And this is what we'll learn at this site. Then we're going to head on towards Bolivia and in that direction towards Puno on day 13. We'll be taking a private bus. It'll be an early morning rise as well. And we'll go to Puno. On our bus, we'll have a guide that will be explaining everything along the way. And along this route to Puno, it's about 10 hours approximately, we will have several stops. One of them is at the Rachi ruins that we see right here. This is an Inca site dedicated to the sun god, but also with many sundials and interesting vestiges. But we'll also be visiting Anday Huaylillas. This is the Sistine Chapel of the Andes with many frescoes, impressive paintings on the interior. It's a small church, but there's 3 navels with different areas, and all of them are covered in just painting with so much detail and so much blend of cultures between the Inca and the Spanish culture, representing religion, but also representing local traditions. And then along the way, we'll be stopping, before we arrive to Puno, we'll be stopping at La Raya. La Raya is one of the highest points we will be visiting, about 4,200 to 4,400 meters, more or less. And then we will stop there for an amazing view of the Andean mountains, but also to see if we're able to step out, have a very short walk at this altitude if anybody's willing to do that. There's lunch along the way between Cusco and Puno. Usually after lunch, I'll be honest with you, everybody falls asleep because of the altitude and the movement, and you have some nap time on the bus. We'll be arriving in the evening at Puno. Our hotel is right at the border, at the edge of Lake Titicaca on the other side of the city. So we have a great view at all times. We'll have dinner there, and then we'll have to spend the night. Now, the next day, day 14, on Lake Titicaca, we'll be waking up early at the hotel, and we'll be boarding a small boat. It's almost like a bus on the water with reclinable seats. You have a small terrace on the boat as well. Our first stop on Lake Titicaca, after about a half-hour navigation, will be the Urals Islands. These islands are weaved from the reeds that grow in Lake Titicaca. The people, the Uro people, they actually use these reeds for a little bit of almost about everything. They even chew on it to clean their teeth. You'll see that they have amazingly beautiful white teeth because of chewing on the reeds. It actually cleans them. And they are constantly weaving the reed because they have to replace parts of the reed every 3 months. They have these small boats as well. And now they have to tie the reed at night, their islands, otherwise they might float all the way into Bolivia and they don't have passports, so they might get into immigration trouble. Well, then the next day after visiting, well, actually I skipped a part here. In the afternoon, we'll be visiting the island of Tequila. It's a couple hours from the Uros Islands to Tequila. We'll have a traditional lunch at Tequila is a community tourism center. And the families that live on Tequila Island will open the doors of their homes for us to have lunch there. Now, there is a small market, there is a celebration where they have the dances and festivals. So it's a nice island to visit, and it represents, you know, the people in Lake Titicaca on the Peruvian side. We'll return to Puno for dinner at the hotel. Next day, it's an early morning rise. We leave around 7 because we have to make it to the border at Copacabana. This is on the Bolivian side. Now, to cross the border, we have to be there before 12. So when the guide will give our schedule, make sure that we're there on time. It's about 3.5 to 4 hour drive. So we have an early rise and we want to be there on time. And border crossing is arranged to be very smooth and easy. Then we'll have an afternoon at leisure, enjoying the shores of Lake Titicaca and Copacabana, one of the main ports. But we will visit the Copacabana Church, Nuestra Señora de Copacabana, which is where you can see the religious fervor of local Bolivians. Then on the next day, day 16, we'll be heading towards La Paz. But on the way, we'll stop at Tiwanaku. Tiwanaku was considered the place where the birth of the Inca Empire took place. Here they say the first Inca threw a knife, and wherever it landed, he would build the empire. And they say it landed in Cusco. But here you have the famous Sun Gate and other archaeological sites that are part of the Tiwanaku complex. Calasasaya, the Subterranean Temple, legendary Sun Gate, and Pumapunku ruins. You have the Pumapunku ruins, and this is the Sun Gate. So it is a large complex. Again, now, one thing to take note is we've arrived at Puno. Puno's at 3,800 meters of altitude. This is the Altiplano, the high Andean plateaus. So all onwards from Puno onwards, we're going to be staying around at 3,800 meters. This is also there. So walking will be slow. You're going to have to take it easy, but nevertheless, you'll be enjoying the beauty of these archaeological sites. Then after visiting Tiwanaku, it's about another hour and a half to get to La Paz. La Paz is an Andean city surrounded by mountains, by volcanoes, the Illimani and others. Now we'll spend the night in a hotel that is not at the highest part of La Paz. Next morning we'll have breakfast, and then we will head out to the higher part, but we'll take a cable car. So no worries, no walking to get all the way up to El Alto. From there, we'll visit the Kili Kili lookout, and we'll be able to see the entire city below. Then we'll have a city tour with visiting the main plaza, going through the Indian and witch markets. These are more shamanic ritual markets where you'll find the different herbs and things. And we'll be visiting the Moon Valley. Moon Valley is at the lower altitude, about 2,800 meters. The rest of the pass is between 3,600 and 3,800. And El Alto, of course, is above 4,000. But going back to the Moon Valley, this is almost like taken from a Star Wars movie. And they call it Valley of the Moon because of the moon-like formation. So you're actually going to feel out of space in this beautiful area. Quite unique, actually. Then on day 18, our last day, well, we'll be flying out very early from La Paz to Lima. This is it's a red-eye flight. We'll be having a breakfast. Then we'll check in at the hotel. Early check-in. We'll have another breakfast there. And then we can leave our luggage and we'll go onwards to Miraflores and El Barranco. Miraflores is the district that's right by the ocean in Lima. It's a little bit more modern, but also has its nice sites. And El Barranco is the Bohemian district of Lima. Now, these are actually small cities in the whole district of Lima, Lima is actually a state in Peru. And the old town, of course, is part of is the Lima headquarters. But El Barranco, I like it because you have this, it's a cliff and it goes all the way down to the beach. You have great views and you have a different type of architecture, a really nice vibe, very, very unique, creative, artsy. Then we'll head back towards Miraflores and have lunch at Mango's restaurant. There's a buffet there, and we'll have a collection of all the food we've seen around Peru, and we can recollect on our favorites. So, and it's at the Larcomar Shopping Center. Don't get fooled by shopping center. It's actually one of the places with the best views of the ocean front by the cliffs. So you do have a nice view, and you have a free afternoon. We'll have dinner at the hotel and be transferred to the airport for a final flight back home. This is our itinerary laid out, as I mentioned. A little bit about Peruvian food. Be sure to try the ceviche. Ceviche is fish or shrimp marinated in lemon or cooked in lemon. It's not cooked, it's actually raw, but curated in lemon. You also have a causa limeña. Causa meaning cause, for a good cause. Anytime Peru was at war, they invented one of those times they invented this dish. It's based with potatoes, but it also has corn and of course some seafood. Ají de gallina, lomo salteado. This is part of the Asian influence in the Peruvian cuisine. The pachamanca, which I mentioned you'll be enjoying in the Sacred Valley. And the huancaína noodles, or anything with the huancaína sauce, which is a high Andean city inland from Lima, but they have these special hot sauces and herbs that give unique flavors to the Peruvian food. Be sure to be a bit adventurous here and enjoy. Don't miss out on anything. Now, Bolivian food. Bolivian food is a little bit different, a little bit more, let's say, a mix of Amazon and Andean in some cases. Here you have skewers with heart. That's the anticucho. Sonso de yuca. It's a type of skewer, but yuca, it's cassave or manioc. Then you have cuñape. These are yuca balls. Sorry, just a second. I went to the wrong slide. Okay, there we go. We're back. Humitas, which are corn pastries. They're wrapped in the corn actually leaf, and they cook them. Or pique macho, which is a mix of everything. That is, you have meat, egg, and a salad mix all together. So these are typical Bolivian dishes. Be sure to try them. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the hotels we will be visiting. They're 3 to 4 star standards. They're comfortable, modern. Some of them are colonial and historic. We have a good combination, but you'll see in the pictures that you'll be having a good level of comfort throughout the entire trip. Jose Antonio Lima. This is in the Miraflores district, close to many restaurants and many areas to walk around in the promenade. As you can see, rooms are comfortable and cozy. This is in Nazca, on the other hand, a little bit more tropical because it's close to the ocean as well. Then we have Paracas. This is, of course, by the ocean as well, a little bit more of a resort style hotel. As you can see, they're all comfortable. In the Sacred Valley, we're staying at Posada del Inca Yucay. This is a beautiful property. It has its own spa, so you can actually go on your first day in the Sacred Valley. You have a free afternoon, so be sure to enjoy the spa, enjoy the gardens, and all the surrounding views. Then we have Casa Andina standard at Aguas Calientes, the town close to Machu Picchu. As you can see, it's very close to the train station, right on the rails. Comfortable, nice property that allows us to actually be able to rise early and get to Machu Picchu within the first groups. Then the Casa Andina Standard Plaza in Cusco, as I mentioned, it's right around the corner from the main plaza. So you can actually walk around, enjoy Cusco as well on your free afternoon, and make the most of your visit there. Then in Copacabana, we have a lakefront property, Rosario del Lago. Some nice rooms, a little bit more Bolivian style. You can see the folklore throughout it. And then in La Paz, we are staying at the Ritz apartment. This one is located a little bit at a lower level in the city, not at the 3,800 or 600 meters, but at 3,400 meters approximately. So we've picked it because it will give you a little bit more comfort, less altitude, and you'll be able to be a little bit more relaxed. So that's a little bit about the trip. Some recommendations about traveling to high altitude areas. Before the trip, try to be regular with your amount of sleep. Get the usual, but try to sleep a little bit more actually. Avoid eating heavy meals, getting into shape a little bit. No alcoholic beverages in excess. But during the trip, then we have to be a little bit more careful, like drink plenty of fluids, bottled water. Now, regarding water, if it's not boiled or bottled, avoid it. Mainly because, not because, the water is not clean or anything. We're well beyond that in South America. I live in Ecuador, and if I travel to other areas of the world, I could get sick too. It's just a different variety of bacteria, minerals, different things that are located. It's a location thing. So I get sick if I travel to other areas and I don't drink the bottled water. So it's more about a travel sense than anything else. Avoid about alcoholic beverages and tobacco in the high altitude. If you're going to have a glass of wine, maybe you should share a glass of wine with somebody, have a half a glass or something like that, but not go light on the wine and on the alcohol. Rich in sugars and carbohydrates. Yes, we will be putting some weight on in this trip. A lot of delicious things to eat though. So that's some tips to make it easy on you and more enjoyable. And then that's our webinar, just highlighting the details. I'm going to stop at one of the slides I like, and it's showing you one of the highlights, Machu Picchu. And Kerrie, do we have any questions?
Yes, if there are any questions, please call your local office. You can email myself. I can forward them on to Marcel. We also have Lisa, who's our tour director, who has taken this tour a handful of times. She's been to all these locations, so she's a wonderful resource and happy to answer any of your questions. Her email is just lisa@wellsgraytours.com. And that was wonderful, Marcel. I love this tour. I've actually traveled through South America myself and been to many of these places, and it is as fabulous as these pictures look. A couple of things I just want to point out, as Marcel mentioned, we do just have 5 seats left. We're taking a small group of 25 people. Of course, your passport is required, and it is an activity level 3. So we do require you to sign that activity level. We just want to make sure you can enjoy all of the activities on this particular trip. And yeah, it leaves April 10th, 21 days. It's going to just be an epic journey of South America, seeing Peru and Bolivia, and of course, all the highlights that Marcel talked about, and some amazing handicrafts and sweaters that you can purchase. I would suggest packing light so you can come home with a few really special items. I did a lot of shopping when I traveled through South America. So I just want to say thank you so much to Marcel for joining us all the way from Ecuador today and sharing all these insights and behind the scenes of this absolutely fabulous itinerary. And both of us are here if you have any questions moving forward.
Thank you, Kerrie. I really appreciate you hosting me, and thank you everyone for joining us. I did see that, there was questions about altitude. I see that there's questions about altitude sickness pills. Are they worth it? Well, or do they work? Well, to be honest, you have to ask your physician on that. I will always recommend that. I would never recommend any medicine on my own. But also, just one note is, if you're taking the altitude sickness pill to relax, to ease the altitude effect, that's fine. But it shouldn't be taken to perform. To go in and say, okay, now I'm feeling better, I'm going to walk out there, because your heart rate is still going to be up and racing. So you don't want to, rely on altitude sickness pills to go and overdo it. It's just to ease the symptoms. That's one of the questions. Then I was looking at another question, is what to expect in terms of weather. Well, the weather in Lima in April it's great weather. We've actually picked March, April, these months because it's the best weather to visit the Andes in Peru. But nevertheless, you have to be prepared. When you arrive in Lima, the weather's going to be quite warm. It's going to be around 77 degrees in average. Going towards Nazca might rise up to about 85, but it will be warm weather. Remember that in the evenings, since we're by the coast, it can get windy, so a jumper or a windbreaker would be fine there. Since you're traveling onwards to Cusco and other cooler weather areas, you'll be fine with the sweaters you bring as well. But take into account the weather around Cusco is going to be 52 degrees in average, so it's a little bit chillier, fresh, I would say. Now this is way after the wet season or the rainy season, so you won't get that much rain, but always be prepared. Having a jacket or is always a good idea. And then as we go onwards to Bolivia, the weather does drop a little bit because we're going to a higher altitude. So we can expect it to go down to around 45 degrees, 42 degrees, just to give an idea in terms of what to expect in weather. It will be best to dress in layers though in the Andes, because the mornings or midday are quite warm. The temperature rises, but in the evening, the temperature drops a lot. So be ready for that. And I think those are the main questions I've seen. And then we're happy to answer other questions. So just reach out. Kerrie and the team will be here for you.
Yeah, and one thing we do offer is when you do get your ticket package, we will put together a suggested packing list. So as Marcel mentioned, some of those items, and we'll have a detailed itemized list for you that will just sort of help guide you in what we suggest you bring along for the trip. Yeah.
Wonderful, Kerrie. Thank you very much. And I hope everyone has a lovely rest of the day. And we look forward to seeing you. Don't forget, there's only 5 more spaces left.
That's
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks so much, Marcel, and hope to see you in South America very, very soon.